A tug of war for a 7-year-old little girl standing in a courthouse with their soon-to-be divorced parents. She knows her life is about to change, but she has no idea how. She buries her fear, anxiety, and confusion within while she shows a brave face to the world. Her mother looks down to inspect her daughter to make sure her braids are perfect and her dress has perfect pleated pressed pleats and she's wearing her brand new shoes. Her mother checks her own outfit to make sure everything's perfect, and she checks her hair so that every piece is in place. She seems to be a little bit more concerned about appearing as the better parent than noticing that her little girl is holding her teddy as though it's her last breath on earth. In the best interest of the child, the courts do their best to toss around the ragged remains of the lost child within. The scattered remains, the bits torn apart by the adults left for the child to live in. The courts decide that the time for this little girl is divided 50-50 between mom and dad, words that make this little girl feel as though she's being ripped into two. In the best interest of the child, the courts decide mom gets spring break, and dad gets a month in the summer. Mom gets Easter, dad gets Thanksgiving. And they split this little girl down the middle on Christmas. As the little girl is rushed out of the courthouse and she's whisked down the halls of justice, she looks back at her daddy. Tears are streaming down his face. She wonders, when's Thanksgiving? The moment this little girl is buckled into her mother's car, there's a veil of hatred over them. The mother uses venomous words to speak about the little girl's daddy in a plot to destroy the purest of love and taint it with hate. This plot is designed with only one purpose, and that is to take the most established, pristine relationship between father and daughter and taint it with hate. The father who taught her how to ride a bike. The father who sang her favorite songs with her. The father who sat up with her at night when she had a high fever. The father who read a bedtime story to her every single night when he tucked her in. But let's be clear here. Parental alienation is not gender specific. Parental alienation can be a father alienating a son and or a daughter from a mother, and it can be a mother alienating a son or a daughter from a father. But truthfully, as a certified divorce coach specializing in parental alienation, I am hard-pressed to find the words strong enough to describe the poisoning of the child's mind and the punishing of their soul that goes hand in hand with parental alienation. I have seen what this psychological knot has done to these children and how it tears at their soul and their insides. You see, no matter how confused this little girl may be about what's going on with her parents, there is one thing she will know for certain, and that is hate equals love. And the more she hates her daddy, the more she secures the love of her mother. Her mother has an agenda. And that agenda is to inflict merciless pain on the little girl's father in a mission to win a war that she has initiated. And her weapon of choice, her daughter. She tells her daughter stories about her father. Her father doesn't love her. He doesn't want to be with her. He's not safe to be around. And yet, little girl can't tell anybody about the love she feels for her father other than her teddy, because if she does, she fears the loss of her mother, and her mother has appointed herself as the only parent that matters. And the father, he fights tirelessly to tell his little daughter that he loves her. He wants to be with her, just to spend some time with her, to remind her when she was daddy's little girl. wants to reminisce about the times that they used to eat ice cream and it would spill all over the place and they would laugh for hours. And the times that they would go to the beach and she was so afraid of the water, but he would hold her hands and make sure that the waves wouldn't knock her over, and flying kites on windy days. That was her favorite. Since that time, all his efforts to reach out to his daughter by sending cards and letters have all been futile because they've all been sent back to him unopened. As this little girl grows, she becomes tired, weary, broken, intimidated. She hands over her independence of thinking. It's almost impossible to imagine that this is happening to our children. It seems like a nightmare that's just happening to an unfortunate few, but the truth is there are so many walking wounded who walk around with this guilt because somewhere inside they know what's happened is a lie and they know the truth. As the mother in this story continues on her mission to destroy the relationship between father and daughter, she employs an army of officials, doctors, therapists, guardian ad litems, attorneys, mediators, moderators, parenting coordinators, custody evaluators, just to name a few, whose specialized training in parental alienation may be non-existent, or they may be insufficiently informed or misinformed. And yet, the mother drags this little girl back into the courtroom where she spews this false narrative, false stories about her daddy of hate to these officials. Stories that are rehearsed with such articulation and such accuracy that it leaves a cloud of doubt hovering over the father. The little girl can't tell anybody the love she feels. And then in the best interest of the courts, they decide that the father's involvement with the little girl will depend on if she wants to see him or not. A lofty and unreasonable decision to turn over to this young girl who's now 13. 13, a pivotal age when a child can decide which parent she prefers. This is an impossible decision to turn over to a child that has the potential to damage them psychologically for the rest of their life. However, based on the testimony given by this little girl, stories that she's been told are true, although she doesn't remember any of them. If and when she makes contact with her dad, well, it's unlikely to happen. Gone is the precious time they can never make up. The mother smiles proudly for a job well done, and the little girl feels relieved to have won her mother's favor. This is the last in the tug of war. Mom has all the rope, and the dad is left hanging. As they step out of the courtroom, the mom walks as though she has this crown, this favorite crown. The little girl, she feels the guilt because she knows somewhere inside what she has said is a lie. But who would listen to her anyway now if she told the truth? You see, there may come a time where she may feel such a hole in her soul, and she may try to fill it with something, anything, to soothe the sadness, the soreness, the guilt, the hate that has been injected into her. It would not be a surprise if this hate and void in her life sets the foundation for her to doubt herself. Or her distorted perceptions of relationships may set the stage for her to have unfulfilled and possibly abusive relationships the rest of her life. Or her invisible wounds lay the foundation for anxiety and depression. Or her resounding theme in life that love equals hate will become her own internal tug of war. As we go back to the courthouse, Mom and daughter are coming out of the courtroom, and they walk down the corridor and they see the dad coming towards him. His gait is of a very broken man, and he looks so much older than his actual years, but he has a face of determination that says, I know what's happened to you and I will never give up on you. He wants to say something, anything, to his beloved daughter, but she looks more like a young woman now as the years have passed, and she's no longer the little girl he once knew. His daughter, she wants to reach out and touch his hand. She wants to say something to him, anything. Dad, thanks for not giving up on me. I'm okay. But she knows that she can't, because the wrath of her mother, should she show an ounce of love or compassion for her father, well, that is a fight she has long since lost. Gone are the precious times and days with her father, times they can't make up. This is parental alienation in full regalia. As the elevator doors begin to close, the father and daughter lock eyes with one another. Tears are streaming down her face, for she realizes what she has done. She doesn't have the capacity to know what the long-term effects of her actions are, but she knows that she suffers in silence, and she feels deserving of suffering in silence. This takes parental alienation fully in its full regalia. Parental alienation does not just impact parents and child. It impacts families by eliminating themselves from one another forever. This little girl didn't just lose her father. She's lost brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. These families are haunted by family photographs with the faces of these missing children while they still walk the face of this earth. I have spent countless hours in courtrooms, and I've seen hundreds of divorces, and I've seen what this psychological knot does to the inside of these children's minds and their souls. We need to educate our family law courts, our mental health providers, our legal professionals on the harsh realities of parental alienation so that it can be adequately recognized and immediately diffused so that families are not burdened down by the anguish of this heinous assault. Divorce fractures families, but parental alienation should not be allowed to fracture children. Those of us who have been the targeted parent, the adult alienated child, the professionals in the position to make a difference today, to not look the other way, rather to help these children who are suffering in silence, to let them know we know the harm that is being done to them and we will not look the other way. Because the truth is, it is in the best interest of the child to have the right to love both parents, the right to not be pulled apart, the right to not be burdened down, and the right to love both parents equally, and the right to not have to make a decision. This is a horrendous psychological knot that causes them to rip their insides apart. This should not be this young woman's end of her story. She has the right to not be broken. She has the right to take back her independence of thinking. She has the right to take back what has been ripped from her. And for the children who are suffering, we have not acted in the best interest of the child because none of this was their fault. None of this was okay. Eliminating parental alienation, now that's in the best interest of the child.